If you're exhausted but can't figure out why, it's probably because you're carrying responsibility for things you have zero control over. You're held accountable for outcomes, but stripped of the authority to actually influence those outcomes. And that gap between responsibility and control is quietly destroying your peace of mind. In today's short video, I'm going to explain a key reason behind why men are chronically stressed, then discuss how you can figure out where this may be affecting your life and what to do about it. Here's the equation that explains most of the stress you're feeling. Responsibility without authority equals stress. When you're responsible for results but don't have the power to control the variables that create those results, your nervous system stays in a constant state of alert. You're always waiting for the other shoe to drop because deep down you know you're set up to fail. Let me give you an example that'll make this crystal clear. Think about teaching. So when I started school in the 1970s, teachers could maintain control of their classrooms. If a kid was disruptive, the teacher had authority to remove them, assign consequences, and contact parents who would typically back the teacher's decisions. Teachers had both responsibility for classroom outcomes and the authority to manage the variables that affected those outcomes. Now look at teaching today in the U.S. Teachers are still held responsible for test scores, classroom behavior, and student outcomes, but they operate under such restrictive conditions that they have almost no real authority. They can't discipline disruptive students effectively. Parents often undermine their authority instead of supporting it. Administrators tie their hands with bureaucratic policies. Yet, when test scores drop or classroom behavior deteriorates, guess who gets blamed? The teacher. Same responsibility, stripped of authority. The result? Teaching has become one of the most chronically stressful professions in America. That's exactly what's happening in your life, just in different contexts. So you're the middle manager responsible for your team's performance, but you can't hire the right people, can't fire the wrong ones, can't change their compensation, and can't adjust unrealistic deadlines set by people above you. Yet, when productivity drops, you're the one called into the office to explain why. You're expected to be the steady, reliable presence in your family, but every decision you make gets second-guessed or overruled. You're responsible for maintaining discipline with the kids, but your partner undermines you in front of them. You're supposed to keep everyone happy and secure, but when you try to lead or make decisions, you're met with resistance or criticism. You're expected to help manage your elderly father's finances and health care, but when you try to have conversations about his future planning or suggest he might need more help, he shuts down and tells you he's fine. Meanwhile, your siblings and other family members keep calling you asking what you're doing about Dad's situation, as if you have some magical authority to force an independent 78-year-old man to make different choices. Let me be clear about something. This isn't just about having a stressful job or dealing with difficult people. This is about a fundamental mismatch between what's expected of you and what you're actually empowered to do. And that mismatch creates a special kind of exhaustion that sleep doesn't fix and vacations don't cure. Here's what makes it worse. Most men don't even recognize this pattern. They just know they're tired all the time, irritable, and feeling like they're failing at everything despite working harder than ever. They blame themselves for not being strong enough, smart enough, or dedicated enough, but the problem isn't your effort. The problem is you're playing a rigged game. This responsibility without authority trap shows up everywhere in middle-aged men's lives. You're responsible for your family's financial security, but you work for a company that could eliminate your position tomorrow for reasons that are completely outside your control. You're expected to maintain your marriage, but you can't control your partner's behavior, mood, or level of effort in the relationship. You're supposed to guide your adult children, but they make decisions that directly impact you while ignoring your input completely. The cost of staying trapped in these situations isn't just stress, it's learned helplessness. It's the slow erosion of your confidence and your willingness to take risks or assert yourself anywhere in your life. You start to believe that effort doesn't really matter, that you have no real influence over your outcomes. And that belief becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And maybe you used to have more of an internal locus of control, feeling like you had the ability to get results. But now you feel like life just happens to you. And if you're getting value from this so far, please support the channel by liking the video. Thank you. So how do you break this pattern? Let me walk you through this step by step. But first, let me be clear about something. This isn't about avoiding stress. It's about choosing stress that you can actually do something about, the kind that builds you, not the kind that breaks you. First, you need to audit your life for responsibility-authority mismatches. Look at the areas where you feel most stressed and ask yourself, am I being held accountable for results I don't actually control? Where am I carrying weight without having power? For example, if you're losing sleep over your adult son's poor financial decisions, ask yourself, do I actually have any authority to change his spending habits? Or am I just accepting guilt and stress over choices that are entirely his to make? This isn't about finding someone to blame, but it's about getting honest about the dynamics you're operating in. Second, for each situation you identify, ask yourself this critical question. Can I increase my authority here, or do I need to decrease my emotional investment? Sometimes you can renegotiate. Sometimes you can set clearer boundaries. Sometimes you can have direct conversations about decision-making processes. For example, instead of accepting every last-minute project at work because you're afraid to push back, you can start saying, I can take this on, but it means that that other thing that you wanted me to do gets pushed to next week. Which is the priority? You're not refusing to help. You're forcing a conversation about realistic expectations and priorities. Third, start redirecting your energy toward areas where your effort actually moves the needle. This might mean building something of your own instead of just advancing someone else's agenda. Instead of spending your weekends doing home improvement projects that nobody notices or appreciates, maybe you start that woodworking hobby that you've been putting off for years. Something where your effort creates results you can see and control. It might mean focusing on your health, your skills, or relationships where there's genuine reciprocity. It might mean saying no to volunteer roles where you're expected to fix problems but given no real decision-making power. Here's what this looks like in practice. Instead of staying late, trying to fix a dysfunctional team you can't actually manage, you document the constraints you're working under and have an honest conversation with your boss about what's realistic. Instead of constantly trying to keep the peace in a household where your input isn't valued, you stop taking responsibility for everyone else's emotions and start focusing on what you can control, your own responses and choices. Let me prepare you for what this shift feels like. Initially, it might feel like you're being selfish or giving up. You've probably been praised your whole life for being the guy who handles everything, who never complains, who just figures it out. Learning to distinguish between genuine responsibility and manipulative guilt takes practice. Some people in your life won't like these changes. They benefited from you carrying responsibility without authority. They want you to remain accountable for outcomes while they maintain control over the process. Don't let their discomfort convince you to go back to being a willing victim of impossible situations. And the men who make this shift report feeling less exhausted by their lives because they're no longer fighting battles they can't win. Their actual performance improves because they're investing their energy more strategically. And they develop genuine self-respect because they're no longer accepting roles where failure is built into the job description. Here's the truth. You can't control other people, market conditions, or bureaucratic systems, but you can control where you invest your time, energy, and emotional resources. Stop trying to succeed in situations designed to make you fail. Stop accepting responsibility for outcomes you don't control. Start focusing your efforts on areas where your authority matches your accountability. So this week, pay attention to where you're carrying stress about things you can't actually influence. Ask yourself, is this truly my responsibility, or have I just been convinced it's my problem? The goal isn't to avoid all stress. Some stress is good, and some stress comes with anything worth doing. The goal is to eliminate the chronic, soul-crushing stress that comes from being trapped in no-win situations. You don't have to stay exhausted. You don't have to keep playing rigged games. Start investing your energy where it actually counts and watch how quickly your stress levels and your self-respect begins to change. If this resonated with you and you're tired of feeling powerless in your own life, be sure to subscribe to the channel. I make content for middle-aged men who are ready to stop accepting situations that slowly drain them and start building lives they actually want to live. I'll see you in the next one.